It was Monday morning. We had just finished breakfast and were still sitting at the kitchen table. I was sipping my coffee and reading the newspaper when my wife suddenly said, "Chad, could you put the newspaper down? I need to talk to you." I set the paper aside, and she continued, "I'm leaving you, Chad. I want a divorce." "Is that all?" I asked, picking the newspaper back up and flipping to the sports section. "I'm serious, Chad," she insisted. I ignored her, which only made her angrier. "Damn it, Chad. Put that newspaper down and talk to me about this. I have nothing to say, except goodbye. Honestly, it's not much of a loss. You haven't been a decent wife for over a year. So just go." I put the newspaper down, stood up, and walked into my home office. I grabbed a notebook and a pen from my desk, pulled an envelope from a drawer, and went back to the kitchen. At the top of the page, I wrote, "Tyrone, thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank God she's leaving me." Just as I was about to seal the note in the envelope, I had an idea. I took out one of the lottery tickets I had bought the night before and added it to the envelope. Then I wrote, "Maybe if you get lucky and win, it'll be enough to keep the cheater satisfied so she won't cheat again. Good luck, kid. You're going to need it." I signed it. A very grateful Chad. I folded the paper, sealed it in the envelope, addressed it, and handed it to Kathy. "When you see him, give him this." She took it, completely stunned. "You know," I said, "just because you think I'm clueless doesn't mean I actually am." "Maybe," I added, taking the envelope back from her. "Maybe I should mail it myself. I don't trust you not to open it, read it, and throw it away. Why don't you go pack your things and get out of my life? Since you're leaving, I want you out of the house as soon as possible." "I'm not going anywhere," she said. "I'm not moving out just so you can move your girlfriend in." I didn't say another word. I just stood up, poured my coffee into a travel mug, topped it off, and headed to work. On the way, I stopped by the bank. I closed our joint savings and checking accounts, and I emptied our safe deposit box. Then I went to another bank closer to my office and opened new accounts, under my name only. Next, I canceled all our joint credit cards and requested new ones, again, in my name only. After that, I focused on work like usual. I stayed late, had dinner and drinks with my executive assistant, and casually mentioned that I was back on the market if her sister was still interested. Maria laughed. "To hell with my sister. If you're single again, I want to be first in line." Maria had started with me as a secretary 10 years ago. She'd proven herself so capable that I promoted her to assistant 4 years ago, and 2 years ago to executive assistant. Once, on a Sunday, I hosted a backyard barbecue. I invited Maria, but she said her sister was visiting from out of town. I told her to bring her along. Her sister, Tara, was a busty, attractive blonde. The next day, Maria told me with a laugh that Tara had a crush on me. I remembered chuckling and saying, "Don't ever mention that to Kathy. She can be insanely jealous sometimes." And now here Maria was, saying she was interested in me. I had no idea she felt that way. "All right," I said jokingly. "Tara moves to second place. You can have first." "I'm not joking, boss," she replied. "I'm dead serious. I want to give it a try." "Maria," I said, "you might not feel that way when you hear what I've got to offer." "What do you mean?" "She wants a divorce. I'm giving her what she wants and letting her lover have her. I don't know what their plan is exactly, but it seems she finally decided that seeing him a few times a week just wasn't enough. Now she wants him full-time." "How long have you known?" "A year and a half. I knew almost from the day it started." "How did you find out?" "A friend saw her go into a motel room with a guy and called me. I hired a private investigator to follow her for a week. He got me everything I needed. A year and a half? And you didn't do anything?" What was I supposed to do? Get angry and destroy my own life? In this state, divorces are no fault. Everything would have to be split 50-50. I'd have to sell the house and share the money with her. I'd lose the pool, the hot tub, my woodworking shop, and the 3-car garage, and end up in some tiny apartment. No thanks. I figured I'd just let her keep cooking, cleaning, and doing the laundry. But how could you live with her, knowing she was cheating? You'd be surprised how quickly love turns to hate, and then to indifference. I can't believe a healthy guy like you went a year and a half without sex. Who said anything about going without? As long as she was offering, I was taking. Sure, the frequency dropped a bit, and I never touched her on the days I knew she was with him. But otherwise, nothing really changed. I stopped making love and just had sex. Do you have any idea why she did it? No clue, but I doubt he was the first. You think there were others? I can't be sure, but in the 10 years we've been married, I remember her acting the same way for different times, just like she has for the past year and a half. My guess? Each time, it was the same reason. If no one had seen her this time, and I hadn't been told, I'd have brushed it off as another one of her mood swings. Maybe I'm wrong, but it doesn't matter. I know about this affair, and that's enough. That's all I needed to know. She's a cheater. So what are you going to do now? Maria asked. Wait. Wait? Wait for what? To see what she plans to do. She's on her own now. I emptied the bank accounts, canceled all her credit cards, and told her to leave the house. She wanted a divorce, so I'm letting her take the lead. But since she doesn't make enough to support herself and pay a lawyer, she'll have to get the money from her lover. And I'm not sure he'll give it to her. Maybe they talked about this before she hit me with it, but I don't know. Look, if you're really interested in me, you need to understand. You'd be getting involved with a married man who has no idea how long it'll take to get divorced. You're thinking about this the wrong way, Chad. Oh, really? How so? If she files, she'll be the one in control. You'll get served, and that might not go well. You have no idea what she could claim. What if she accuses you of mental or physical cruelty and gets a restraining order? That could get you kicked out of the house until the hearings are over. You need to take control, boss. Be the one calling the shots. Make her react, not the other way around. And it'll help me, too. Help you how? Well, if you wait for her to file, and she doesn't, then we'd technically be committing adultery. She could throw that back in your face later. You say she cheated, and she could just say, so did you. But if you file, then legally, from that point on, the marriage is over in your eyes. Anything that happens afterward is none of her business. Sure, you're still married until the divorce is final, but no judge is going to care if you're seeing someone after you file. So you're saying I need to stay away from you until one of us files for divorce? Exactly. If we wait for her, it could be years, or maybe just a week. But either way, it'll be on her terms. If you file, you could meet with a lawyer first thing tomorrow and serve her by Thursday. Then I'll have the whole weekend to work on winning you over. Winning me over? I asked. I'm dead serious, boss. What's the point of being first in line if I don't take advantage of it? She was right, and I knew it. I pulled out my phone and speed-dialed Alex. We'd been best friends since 3rd grade. He was a family lawyer, divorce law, basically. When he answered, I told him I needed his help and explained the situation. He was sympathetic. He and his wife Sally were friends of ours, and he admitted he liked Kathy. But he said he'd take care of it first thing in the morning. He asked me to stop by at lunchtime to sign the paperwork, and maybe grab a bite to eat afterward. Then, just to be a jerk, I told him I wanted a restraining order. I lied and said Kathy told me that if I gave her trouble, her boyfriend Tyrone would straighten me out. Alex laughed. I know that's complete BS, he said, but I'll still do it. Just know, there'll be a hearing within 10 days. I can serve the order now, but a judge has to approve it to make it permanent. I know, I said. I'm ready for that. But right now, I just want her out of the house. We don't have kids, so there's no reason she needs to stay there during the divorce. I'm counting on the principle that possession is 9/10 of the law. There's no reason for a judge to kick me out and let her stay. That's what I'm aiming for. I already told her to leave this morning, but I have no idea what I'll find when I get home. She might be gone or still there. Since I can't be sure, I plan to serve her at work. Is there any chance you two could work something out? None. Then I'll see you tomorrow. I hung up and looked across the table at Maria. So, I asked, what do you have planned for me this weekend? She told me, and I liked the sound of it. When I got home, Kathy was still at the kitchen table, sorting through some papers. Why are you still here? I asked, grabbing a beer from the fridge. This is my house too, she said. I'll stay here until I can make other arrangements. If you don't like my company, you can move out. Not a chance. Sit down, she said, and let's talk about how we're going to handle this. There's nothing to discuss, I replied. I already know what I'm going to do, and I don't care what you plan to do. There are things we need to work out, Chad. No, Kathy. There aren't. It's simple. You said you want a divorce, so go get one. Hire a lawyer. File the papers. Pay the court costs. I'm going to fight you for every little thing. This is a no-fault state, so everything gets split 50-50ths. That means we'll need to decide who gets what. I'll drag this out for as long as it takes, so your legal bills pile up. You know lawyers don't work for free, right? You want the coffee table? Great. So do I. You want the couch? Too bad. It has sentimental value, and I simply must have it. Why all of a sudden? You didn't care about any of this before. You didn't even react when I told you I wanted a divorce. You just told me to pack my things and get out. That was before I had time to think it through. I looked her straight in the eyes and took a risk. I let you off the hook the first 3 times because you didn't ask for a divorce. I loved you enough to stay quiet and to stay with you because you always came back to me. She turned away when I mentioned the first 3 times. That was all the confirmation I needed. It's hard to explain why I stayed. I never filed for divorce. Deep down, I thought maybe I had done something to make you mad, and that this was your way of getting back at me. I thought, stupidly, that once you ended your affairs, it meant you realized you still loved me. That's why you always came back. I glanced down at my shoes. There was some dirt on them, and I focused on that for a moment. I thought this thing with Tyrone was just a repeat of the past. But now I see, I was wrong. Now I understand that you're nothing more than a lowly cheater. If you hadn't decided to leave me for Tyrone, it would have just been someone else in 6 months or a year. Thinking about it more, I realized I needed some kind of revenge. What I really wanted to do, if I'm being honest, was take a thick leather belt and beat you until your skin broke and you bled on the floor. But that would only get me locked up. So the only real option I had was to make this divorce as painful and expensive as possible for you. You're right, I said. This is your home too. If you've decided to stay, I can't force you out. But I don't have to like it. And I don't have to speak to you, either. Move your things into one of the spare bedrooms, and stay the hell away from me. I finished my beer and went upstairs to what used to be our bedroom to get ready for bed. I felt like I'd done what I needed to do. I'd given her something to think about. She now had to talk to Tyrone, make decisions, and that would take time. Time Alex could use to serve her the divorce papers and get the restraining order in place. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe she'd already hired a lawyer and the papers were on their way. But I figured the odds were in my favor. I had already cleared out the joint accounts and canceled the cards. I withdrew the money, and the numbers looked exactly how I expected. If she had met with a lawyer, she'd have had to use our money to pay him, unless Tyrone picked up the bill. All I could do now was wait and trust that Alex would act quickly. The next morning, I got up and left before Kathy came out of her room. I went to a bed and breakfast cafe for breakfast. While sipping my coffee, I started writing a list of people to call once Kathy was officially served. I wasn't going to let her make me out to be the bad guy. I was going to tell everyone the truth about the divorce and exactly why it was happening. At work, Maria told me she was really looking forward to the weekend, and I realized so was I. Later that day, I met with Alex for lunch. I signed all the paperwork, and he told me he'd head straight to the courthouse to file the petition. "You still want her served at work?" he asked. "Damn right I do. Around 10 tomorrow should be perfect. And call me as soon as it's done. I want the locks changed before she can come home." I went back to work, arranged to take the next day off, and before I left the office, I called a locksmith to schedule the lock change for tomorrow. It cost a little extra, but it was worth it. When I got home, Kathy's car was in the driveway. But she must have decided to stay in her room and avoid me because I didn't see her all night. The next morning, I left the house before she came downstairs and went back to the same cafe. The waitress, Na, asked, "Where's Kathy? I always see you two together. But this is 2 days in a row without her. You won't be seeing us together anymore. We're splitting up," I told her. "I see," she said, then took my order. When she brought the bill, she added, "My number's on the back." Not the restaurant's, mine. I was speechless. 2 women in 2 days had shown interest in me. So why wasn't I enough for the woman I married? I would never know, because I'd never ask. I drank my coffee and read the morning paper, waiting for the time Kathy usually left for work. Once I was sure she was gone, I headed home and started packing her things, moving them all into the garage. At 10:15, Alex called. "It's done," he said. "The papers have been served." I immediately called the locksmith. Within 20 minutes, he was working on the locks. Not even an hour later, Kathy's car came speeding into the driveway. There was no way she could miss it. The garage door was wide open, and a huge cardboard sign stood at the entrance. It read, "Kathy, all your things are in the garage." She stood there, just staring at the sign for a minute. Then she tried to get in the house. Of course, her keys didn't work. She rang the doorbell, but I didn't answer. Eventually, she left. I peeked into the garage and saw she'd taken a couple of bags. 2 minutes after she drove off, my phone rang. It was Kathy. "Hello. You're an A***** Cole. Did you really have to embarrass me like that in front of my coworkers? It's better than letting you humiliate me in front of mine. What the hell is this restraining order crap? I was afraid you'd ask Tyrone to come beat me up for being rude to you. That's why I filed the restraining order. And you know it. I just need to get into the house to grab a few things," Kathy said. "All your stuff is in the garage," I told her. "I didn't change the garage code, so your opener will still work. If there's something you need that's not there, make a list, tell me where it is, and I'll move it out." "Stop being ridiculous, Chad. You're making this way harder than it has to be." "Sorry, Kathy, but a little inconvenience doesn't come close to making up for the years you made my life miserable. I need this for my own peace of mind. Be grateful I didn't lose control and get violent. Goodbye." I hung up. Then I sat down with my phone and started calling everyone on my list. Most people were shocked to hear that Kathy had cheated on me, but 2 of them weren't. One said, "Finally caught her, huh?" And the other said, "I always thought you two had an open marriage. She was always out with some guy, and you never said anything." I figured those 2 could be scratched off my friends list. Kathy's parents took the news the hardest. They tried to convince me I must have been mistaken. I always liked them. They treated me almost like the son they never had. But I wasn't going to let Kathy twist the story and paint herself as the victim. If I allowed that, they'd think poorly of me, and I couldn't let that happen. After making the calls, I went through the house one more time and gathered up the rest of Kathy's things. Then I made myself some lunch. I had just finished eating when the guys from AR Security arrived. I didn't trust Kathy for a second, and I had no doubt she'd try to violate the restraining order and break into the house. So I had them install a full security system, complete with cameras. That same day, I told Maria at work that we were all set for the weekend. She smiled, clearly excited. "Tomorrow night, dinner and dancing," she said, returning my grin. When I got home later, Kathy did exactly what I thought she would. She took some of her things from the garage and then broke into the house through the interior door that connected the garage to the kitchen. The kitchen was a mess. Plates and glasses were shattered all over the floor. In the living room, several lamps were smashed. But what actually made me smile was seeing her empty my closet, tossing all my clothes onto the floor and peeing on them. All of this, of course, was caught on camera. It showed not only that she violated the restraining order, but that she did it in a malicious and destructive way. That footage would be gold in court. I called Alex right away, and he contacted the police. They came out, took a full report, and photographed the damage. The next day, Kathy was arrested at work. She was fingerprinted, booked, and brought before a judge. She was officially charged with violating a restraining order and willful destruction of private property. To my surprise, the judge didn't keep her in jail. Instead, he set a hearing date and released her on her own recognizance. Despite the chaos, my date with Maria that night was great. We had dinner, went dancing, and scheduled another date for Saturday. That one went well, too. And on Sunday, we had a peaceful, romantic picnic. On Monday, the hearing for the restraining order was held. When the judge saw the footage from the security cameras, he didn't just make the restraining order permanent. He also ordered Kathy to replace everything she destroyed, pay for dry cleaning all my clothes, cover the cost of cleaning the bedroom. He gave her 10 days to comply, or she'd be jailed for contempt of court. Just to be petty, I hired the most expensive cleaning company I could find. Unfortunately, Kathy somehow came up with the money and did everything the judge ordered. So, no, I never got to see her locked up for contempt. The next 2 weeks went by. Maria and I saw each other often, but nothing happened beyond a few intense kisses. Neither of us felt entirely comfortable taking things further while I was still legally married. But we were getting close. We didn't contest the divorce, so it was finalized after 6 months. It was a standard no-fault case. Everything got split 50-50ths. I refinanced the house and bought out Kathy's share. What she didn't know, couldn't know, was that I'd been quietly saving money in a private account, originally intended for a surprise anniversary trip around the world. Since she never knew about it, she didn't get a cent. She also had no idea about the 2 certificates of deposit I had stashed in the safe, bought with my last 2 bonus checks. And I had one final, small victory. Kathy was awarded alimony, but only $100 a week, and only for 2 years or until she remarried. She had tried to get $500 a week. Alex told me we got lucky with the judges. The one who handled the restraining order and the one who oversaw the divorce were cousins, and both of them had been cheated on in the past. They followed the law, but they didn't go above and beyond to help a cheating wife. Whatever Kathy had with Tyrone didn't seem to last long. 7 months after the divorce was finalized, she was living with her parents. 8 months post-divorce, I found myself sitting at the bar in a Hilton hotel, enjoying a beer and a steak sandwich. That's when someone took the seat next to me and said, "Can I buy you a beer?" I turned and saw it was my ex-wife's former lover. Curious, I told him to go ahead. He signaled to the bartender, Agnes, and ordered us both a drink. After she brought them, he took a sip and stared at the bottle for a while, quietly peeling the label. A little pile of shredded paper bits formed on the bar in front of him. Then he finally spoke. "I didn't mean to screw things up for you," he said, still not looking at me. The night I met her, she wasn't wearing a wedding ring. I had no idea she was married. She wasn't acting like it, either. She was out at Bud's bar with a group of co-workers. I asked her to dance. She said yes. I bought her a drink, and she invited me to sit with her and the girls. We danced 3 more times that night. Then I asked her out, and she said yes. He paused, then continued. I fell for her hard. Within a month, we were having sex whenever we could. At first, it was always at a motel, because I had 2 roommates, and one of them was always around. We couldn't go to her place, because she claimed. She told me she lived with her disabled mother, he continued. That's why we couldn't see each other more often. She said she could only go out when someone else was available to take care of her mom. Eventually, I got my own apartment, so we didn't have to rely on motels anymore. Our meetings were still irregular, but I didn't care. I was in love with her. I was planning to propose. I even started looking for a house big enough for the 2 of us, and her mother. But right before I was going to pop the question, a guy I knew asked me, "Why are you dating a cheater?" I was ready to punch him, until he told me Kathy was married, that she had a history of cheating. Turns out, she had an affair with his brother 2 years ago, while still married to you. When her husband found out, he ended it. At first, I didn't believe it. Then I got your letter. I sat on it for a week before confronting her. She broke down in tears. She claimed she didn't love you, said you were a violent drunk, that you beat her and emotionally tormented her. She said she hated you, but was too scared to leave because you supposedly threatened to hunt her down and kill her and anyone she was with. He paused and shook his head. But by then, I had already done my homework. I knew she was lying. And with that, any thoughts I had about marrying her disappeared. Still, she was great in bed. And since you had kicked her out, I let her move in, with one condition. She could stay as long as she kept sleeping with me. Things were fine, until the divorce was finalized. That's when she started talking about marriage again. That's when I ended it. My parents split up because my mom cheated on my dad. He got custody of me. She remarried and cheated again. And again, with a 3rd husband. I believe in that saying, once a cheater, always a cheater. So I made it clear to Kathy. As long as we were just friends with benefits, it was fine. But nothing more. He took another sip of his beer. About 3 weeks later, I came home from work, and she was gone. He leaned back slightly, looked at me, and added, "There were rumors that I knew all along she was married. People wondered why you didn't divorce her right away." I just shrugged. "You said it yourself," I told them. She was damn good in bed. I figured, why rock the boat? I had someone to sleep with, cook, clean, and do the laundry. Honestly, I might have stayed in that arrangement forever if she hadn't brought up leaving and asking for a divorce. He took another slow sip, then added, almost under his breath, I never thought I'd say this, especially to you, but I miss having her in my bed. He finished his beer, stood up, and pulled something out of his pocket. He placed it on the counter and pushed it toward me. What's this? I asked. The lottery ticket you gave me, he said. It was a winner. I stared at him, stunned. He handed me a cashier's check for a substantial amount, a very, very large amount. I waited to give it to you until after the divorce, he said. Didn't want you to have to split it with her. Then he turned and walked away. See you around. And just like that, he was gone. When I got back to the office, Jan, my assistant, looked at me and grinned. You look like the cat who just ate the canary. Was lunch really that good? I smiled. Lunch was impressive. Oh, right, Jan said, suddenly remembering. Maria doesn't work here anymore, huh? Not in the office, I replied. She's home, I added with a smile. Painting the room that'll become the nursery when the twins arrive.